My credit's bad, so I used yours, my sister said with a smirk. It's not a crime if it's family, Dad shrugged. I uploaded the evidence. Her condo got raided the next morning. They always called me the quiet one, the safe one. My own sister, the golden child, thought that meant I was weak, a target. She had no idea she was messing with someone who would bring her entire world crashing down. I was just sitting there, at my desk in the office, surrounded by mountains of financial compliance paperwork. My cubicle, totally tidy, utterly unremarkable. Just like the image my family had of me, Anna Reynolds, 32, the quiet one with a safe little government job. Nothing to see here. Then my phone buzzed. Just a little vibration against the desk. An email notification popped up. New inquiry reported by your credit monitoring service. I tapped it open. First Atlantic Trust. The name meant absolutely nothing to me. But I didn't panic. Honestly, it was the strangest thing. This cold, sudden stillness just settled over me. My training as a senior investigator at the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, it just kicked in. My vision narrowed. Everything else blurred out. I was focused with this incredible precision that only comes from years of financial forensics. It wasn't confusion clouding my thoughts. It was recognition. Someone had just made the first move in a game I knew all too well. Easter brunch, just 2 weeks earlier, flashed through my mind. My parents' Arlington home, our whole family gathered. Caroline, my sister, who's 35, strolled in late, as usual. She was carrying this handbag, probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Designer label, front and center, of course. She was loud, talking about her private equity ventures, regaling everyone with stories from Nantucket. The Hamilton portfolio doubled this quarter, she announced to my parents, who just gazed at her with unmasked admiration. We're restructuring the entire tech division. My dad, Richard, was beaming. My mom, Elaine, squeezed Caroline's hand with such pride. Then Caroline's eyes found me. They always did, especially when she needed someone to diminish. Still processing forms for the Treasury, Annie? Her voice dripped with this fake sweetness. You should really live a little. I just smiled. Said nothing. It was the role I'd perfected since childhood. Later, I watched from the kitchen window as she climbed into her new Range Rover. $68,000 of gleaming metal, just sped away. Her spending lately had been astronomical, way beyond what even her prestigious tech firm salary could possibly cover. Now, staring at this credit alert, the pieces clicked into place. I slipped my phone into my pocket, walked with measured steps to one of our soundproof meeting rooms. Once inside, I closed the door and dialed Caroline's number. She answered on the 4th ring. Annie? This is a surprise. I'm about to head into a meeting. Caroline. My voice was soft. Gentle. The voice of little Annie, the safe one. Quick question. I got a weird credit alert. Did you use my details for anything by mistake? Her laugh was bright, dismissive. You're paranoid, Annie. God, your job's making you suspicious of everyone. Must be boring. My heart rate? Perfectly steady. So, that's a no? Of course not. Her voice sharpened. Gotta run, big meeting. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, looking at the blank screen. The mask of gentle Annie? It dissolved. In its place, the impassive expression of Investigator Reynolds settled on my face. The one my colleagues at the OCC know. The one my family has never seen. I knew, with absolute certainty, that Caroline lied. The average person might feel this huge wave of betrayal, or shock, or just outright rage. But me? Nothing. Just this weird, cold, analytical clarity. It was like a switch flipped. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She picked the absolute worst target, someone who literally specializes in hunting down financial crimes. I returned to my cubicle, logged into my secure government terminal. With swift keystrokes, I accessed systems that few outside the Treasury even know exist. I pulled up a new internal case file template. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This wasn't just about a credit inquiry anymore. This was about crossing a line that cannot be uncrossed. Once I typed my name into this field, there was no going back. I typed Reynolds Anna in the subject line. Then, quietly and professionally, I began documenting the credit alert, the timeline, the bank, the call to Caroline, her response, word for word. I noted the Easter brunch, the Range Rover, the recent spending patterns that so clearly exceeded her income. As I worked, the afternoon light faded outside my window. My colleagues packed up. The office grew quiet. But I remained methodical, focused. This wasn't personal. Not anymore. This was now case number OCC FAR 23791. My family has always underestimated me. They've mistaken my quietness for weakness, my government job for a lack of ambition. They've never understood that being underestimated is its own kind of armor. Caroline will learn this lesson the hard way. I saved the file and closed the system. Tomorrow, I'd begin the real investigation. For now, I gathered my things and walked to my old Subaru in the parking garage. As I drove home to my modest Alexandria apartment, I felt strangely calm. The quiet one with the safe little government job had just declared war. And my sister didn't even know it yet. The next day, I got into work early. That quiet hum of the office always fades when you're staring at something truly shocking on your screen. And believe me, it was worse than just an inquiry. There, in stark, digital clarity, was a new trade line. A $90,000 personal loan from First Atlantic Trust, approved 3 days ago. My heart rate quickened for a fraction of a second, but my training snapped it back, steadying my pulse. Not possible, I whispered, my fingers already flying across the keyboard. I pulled up the digital application. All the information was mine. My name, my flawless credit score built over years, my social security number. But the signature. I zoomed in. It was a forgery. And not even a good one. Caroline hadn't even tried to make it convincing. The loops were exaggerated, the slant all wrong. It was as if she considered the task beneath her full attention. Then the stated income caught my eye. Inflated by 6 figures beyond my actual government salary. I took a screenshot, saved it to a secure folder. I sat back in my chair, hands folded in my lap. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The office continued its daily rhythm. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, low murmurs of conversation. Meanwhile, my world had just tilted on its axis. Caroline had always been the star, the golden child. From childhood piano recitals to high school valedictorian to her supposedly prestigious tech position. She was the one our parents, Richard and Elaine, proudly showcased at family gatherings. I'd been the afterthought. The quiet one with the safe little government job, as they so dismissively called it. They created this. Their lifelong favoritism built Caroline's sense of entitlement, layer by layer, year after year. Their constant praise fed her hubris until she believed she could take whatever she wanted. Even my identity. The monitor light cast a blue glow on my face as the implications sank in. This wasn't just debt. This was fraud. This $90,000 loan, tied directly to my name, could jeopardize everything I'd worked for. My federal security clearance, the very foundation of my entire career, requires spotless financial records. One hint of financial impropriety, and I'd lose not just my job, but the life I'd carefully constructed away from my family's shadow. Caroline hadn't just stolen money. She'd endangered my entire life. The one I built in secret. The one that actually mattered. My first instinct, of course, was to call the bank. Dispute the charge. Shut this down immediately. My hand reached for my phone, then froze midair. No, that's exactly what she'd expect. If I disputed the charges now, Caroline would be alerted. She'd destroy evidence. She'd craft some story for her parents about how confused I was, how I misunderstood everything. I'd be painted as the hysterical little sister once again, while she covered her tracks. This wasn't a family matter anymore. This was a crime scene. I pulled up my secure browser and began building my case file as if Caroline were any other white-collar criminal I investigated daily. My training took over, guiding my actions with precision and calm. First, I meticulously screenshotted everything. The application, the forged signature, the credit report, the loan details. Each image dated, timestamped, saved to a secure server. Next, I cross-referenced the loan's disbursement date with Caroline's social media accounts. Her Instagram was a catalog of conspicuous consumption. A post from just 2 days ago caught my attention, a selfie in an expansive living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The caption read, "Just picked up the keys. Penthouse life. Blessed." The timestamp was exactly 1 day after the loan funds would have cleared. I accessed public property records next. The new penthouse condo in her name? Purchased 3 days ago. The down payment? $85,000. The remaining $5,000 would easily cover moving expenses. And that designer handbag she flaunted at Easter? I leaned back in my chair. The puzzle was now perfectly arranged in my mind. I had the motive, her unsustainable lifestyle. I had the means, my stolen identity. And I had the digital paper trail that connected everything. The trap was built. Now I just needed the confession. I closed the files and shut down my computer, moving with the same quiet efficiency I always had. To anyone watching, I was just Anna Reynolds, finishing her workday. Nothing unusual. Nothing to see. As I walked to my car in the darkening parking garage, I felt strangely calm. Caroline had never understood the power of patience, of methodical planning. She'd always been about instant gratification, impulsive decisions, and quick results. I turned the key in my old Subaru's ignition. I'm playing a longer game now. The quiet one with the safe little government job is hunting, and my sister has no idea she's the prey. 3 months crawled by. I made no moves. The loan payments for that $90,000 debt appeared on my monitoring alerts, each one just barely making the minimum due date. Caroline was cautious enough to avoid default, too smart to trigger immediate consequences, but too arrogant to think there would ever be serious ones. I'd been watching, waiting, documenting. My desk phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. I recognized my mother's number instantly. "Anna? Darling." Elaine's voice carried that familiar warmth, but it was reserved for announcements, not conversations. "We're having a family dinner at our place in Arlington this Friday. Caroline has some exciting news." I noted the tone, insistent, expectant. This wasn't a request. It was a summons. "What kind of news?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "She wants to tell everyone herself. You know how she is." A pause. "You'll be there, of course." Not a question. "Of course," I replied. After hanging up, I sat motionless at my desk, staring at the compliance reports, waiting for my review. 3 months of silence, and now this. The timing wasn't coincidental. Caroline had never been able to resist an audience for her triumphs, real or stolen. I knew this was it. The arrogance. The need to flaunt. Friday evening. I parked my old Subaru down the block from my parents' Arlington home, the same modest colonial where we grew up. Through the bay window, I could see Caroline's Range Rover dominating the driveway, gleaming under the porch lights. Beside it sat my father's sensible sedan, dwarfed by comparison. I checked my phone before exiting the car. The recording app was updated, tested, ready. Virginia is a one-party consent state, by the way. I slipped the device into my pocket and walked to the front door. "Annie." My mother opened the door before I could even knock, as if she'd been watching for me. Her embrace smelled of white wine, and that expensive perfume my father gives her every Christmas. "Everyone's already here." The dining room was arranged with a precision that spoke of hours of preparation. The good china, crystal glasses, linen napkins folded into perfect triangles. My father stood near the fireplace, nursing a scotch. Caroline held court near the bay window, gesturing with a wine glass already half empty. "Look who finally made it," Caroline said, her smile tight. "The government must be running late today." I just smiled, accepting the barb without reaction. Traffic on the bridge. Dinner proceeded with the predictable rhythm of our family gatherings. My father discussed golf scores. My mother inquired about Caroline's recent business trip to Chicago. I answered questions about my little apartment and whether I'd thought about something with more potential than the Treasury. The usual script. But Caroline was different tonight. She practically vibrated with contained energy. Her eyes flicked to me occasionally, measuring, calculating. She refilled her wine glass twice before the main course was cleared. As my mother served dessert, a complicated chocolate thing that Caroline always favors, I casually placed my phone on the table beside my water glass. Screen down, unassuming. The red recording light invisible against the dark tablecloth. Caroline lifted her wine glass, tapping it lightly with her fork. The crystal rang, silencing my parents' small talk. "I actually have something to share," she announced, her cheeks flushed with wine and anticipation. Her eyes locked directly on mine, a smile spreading across her face that somehow didn't reach her eyes. "Funny story," she continued, loud enough to command the whole room. "I used your credit to get a $90,000 personal loan." The dining room fell silent. My father froze, fork suspended halfway to his mouth. My mother's smile remained fixed in place, uncertain. They watched me, waiting for the familiar pattern. Annie absorbs the shock. Annie accommodates. Annie folds. Caroline leaned forward, emboldened by the silence. "My score wasn't great. But yours? Flawless. You should thank me. I'm building your credit history." The moment stretched between us. I felt strangely calm, my pulse steady and even. I looked at Caroline without blinking, without flinching. "Why would you do that, Caroline?" I asked, my voice quiet but clear. "That's bank fraud." Caroline laughed. The sound was brittle in the silent dining room. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Annie. It's just family." Fraudulently using someone's identity to obtain a loan is a federal crime, I continued in the same calm voice. It carries up to 30 years in prison and $1 million fine. Caroline's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "God, you're boring. It's just paperwork. Who's going to know? Who's going to care? The office of the comptroller of the currency might care. The FBI might care." I took a small sip of water. "Did you use the money for the down payment on the penthouse?" A flash of uncertainty crossed her face. "How did you?" "Just curious," I said. "Because that would make it wire fraud, too. They tend to run sentences consecutively." My father cleared his throat, finally lowering his fork to his plate with a sharp clink. "Now, Anna, I'm sure Caroline didn't mean any harm. She's just ambitious. Always has been." "Richard," my mother warned softly. Caroline's face hardened. "Don't worry, Daddy. Annie won't do anything. She never does." She turned back to me. "You wouldn't want to explain to your little government friends why your sister needed to borrow your pristine credit, would you? All those awkward questions about family loyalty." Every word was logged. Every timestamp noted. The confession was clean, arrogant, and undeniable. I checked my watch. "I should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "You're leaving?" My mother's voice rose slightly. "We haven't even had coffee." "Sorry," I said, standing and picking up my phone. "Work." Caroline raised her glass in mock salute. "The wheels of government never stop turning, right, Annie?" I nodded politely to my parents, ignored Caroline's barb, and walked out the front door. The night air felt clean after the charged atmosphere of the dining room. I got into my Subaru and drove, not toward my Alexandria apartment, but directly to the OCC field office. The building was mostly empty at this hour, just the night security guard who knew me well enough not to question my presence. The fluorescent lights in my office flickered on with a faint hum. I logged into my secure government computer, pulled up the file I'd been building for 3 months. I filled out the official conflict of interest notice with methodical precision. I attached the audio file from tonight's dinner. I added the forged loan documents, the credit report I'd been tracking, and the penthouse purchase records I'd obtained through public records. I reviewed everything once more, checking each attachment, verifying each statement. Then I transferred the entire evidence chain to my agency's joint task force. I hit submit and watched as the case vanished from my queue, escalating to a level I could no longer touch. The counterattack had begun. On Monday morning, I arrived at the OCC field office earlier than usual. A sealed manila envelope containing the evidence sat on my passenger seat like a silent bomb. I signed in at security, my badge glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights as I moved through the building with practiced invisibility. My desk phone rang at precisely 8:32 a.m. Martha Green's assistant, her voice crisp and professional. Deputy Director Green would like to see you immediately, Ms. Reynolds. The walk to Green's office felt longer today. 3 doors down, 2 security checkpoints, 1 final breath before I knocked. Enter. Green called from within. Martha Green sat behind her mahogany desk, back straight as a ruler. At 58, she commands a room without raising her voice above a conversational tone. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled into a severe bun, and reading glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. The physical evidence binder, my evidence, lay open before her. Reynolds, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Sit. I did, keeping my hands folded in my lap to prevent any unconscious fidgeting. My pulse remained steady. Green removed her glasses, setting them carefully beside the binder. I've reviewed your submission. Thorough work, clean chain of custody, irrefutable evidence. She paused, her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, assessing me. I nodded once, my face a professional mask. Good work, Reynolds. This is clean. You're recused from this investigation effective immediately. The words hung in the air between us. Not a question. Not a suggestion. A fact. Delivered with the finality that comes from 27 years at the Treasury. Green closed the binder with a soft thump. The FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office have taken possession of the file. Standard protocol for family-involved cases. She leaned forward slightly. Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, the closest thing to softness I'd ever seen from her. And Anna? You handled this by the book. Something in her tone. Not pity, but recognition. For a moment, I wondered if Martha Green had stood where I stood now. If she too once chose duty over blood. Thank you, ma'am, I said, my voice steady. Nothing more needed to be said. The federal machine I'd served for years would now serve me. The case was out of my hands, as it should be. The recusal protected the integrity of the investigation. And, in a strange way, it protected me too. I returned to my cubicle and opened my email. 37 new messages overnight, each demanding compliance reviews, documentation, verification, regulatory filings. I began methodically working through them, my fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Lunchtime came and went. I ate a sandwich at my desk. I reviewed a suspicious activity report from a regional bank in Minnesota. I analyzed transaction patterns from a credit union in West Virginia. I answered calls from field examiners in Florida and Oregon. I drove home in my old Subaru, the reliable engine humming as I merged onto the Alexandria streets. I was, once again, invisible. Just the quiet one with the safe government job. My phone buzzed at 7:43 p.m. My parents. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but habit wins. I answered. Anna? My mother's voice, brittle with forced cheer. You seemed upset at dinner on Friday night, honey. I wanted to check on you. I remained silent, waiting. You know how Caroline is, she continued, filling the silence. She's just ambitious. Always has been. She didn't mean anything by it. My father's voice cut in, clearly on speaker. Your sister's doing important things, Annie. Those kinds of ventures require flexibility. Flexibility. The word they use when they mean bending rules. Breaking laws. I have to go, I said, my voice flat. I have a meeting. I hung up before they could respond. There was no meeting. Just the clean silence of my apartment and the knowledge that justice moves at its own pace. A week passed. The federal machine ground forward. Invisible to those unaware of its mechanisms, but inexorable all the same. I continued my daily routine. The separation between Investigator Reynolds and Anna, the sister, remained absolute. Until Thursday morning, when my phone vibrated with an incoming text. Caroline. The FBI just called me. What did you do? Call me now. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just the calm certainty that systems were working as designed. I took a screenshot of the text and forwarded it to the U.S. Attorney's Office, as instructed in the recusal protocol. 3 minutes later, another text arrived. You'll ruin this family. Mom and Dad are devastated. You're a vindictive bitch. I screenshotted this one too, sent it to the same email address, then blocked her number. Evidence collection complete. Caroline's panic was merely another data point in the investigation. The next morning, I sat in conference room B with 4 colleagues. We were discussing banking integrity measures for community banks and rural markets when my phone vibrated silently in my pocket. A news alert. I didn't need to check it. Across town, I knew federal agents were approaching Caroline in the parking garage of her new penthouse condo. They'd be wearing dark suits, badges clipped to their belts. They'd identify themselves professionally. They'd inform her of the charges. They'd read her rights. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. The evidence chain I built, the credit reports, the forged applications, the loan disbursements traced directly to her penthouse down payment, and most damning of all, her own voice on that dinner recording, had already done the work. Anna, my colleague Tim looked at me expectantly. Your thoughts on the proposed compliance thresholds? I cleared my throat. The current structure creates an unnecessary burden on institutions under $50 million in assets. I recommend a tiered approach based on risk assessment rather than blanket requirements. The meeting continued. The world turned. Justice advanced. And across town, my sister learned what I've always known. True power isn't found in Range Rovers or designer handbags. It's found in discipline, in systems, in doing your job flawlessly. Some might call it revenge. I simply call it compliance. On Friday morning, federal agents sifted through Caroline's penthouse condo with methodical precision. Financial records spread across her dining room table, designer shopping bags stacked in corners. A Treasury investigator tapped through her laptop while another cataloged the contents of a safe hidden behind an abstract painting. Martha Green stood in the center of it all, supervising the operation. "What's the damage?" she asked. The lead agent looked up from a stack of loan documents. It wasn't just Anna. We found 7 distinct stolen identities, all used for various loans. 7. Martha's eyebrows rose. Colleagues, former friends, and... The agent hesitated. Her parents. Richard and Elaine Reynolds. Martha absorbed this information with a slight nod. Total amount? $410,000 in fraudulent debt, spread across multiple financial institutions. Martha walked to the window overlooking the upscale neighborhood Caroline had bought her way into. Smart, she said, not with admiration, but professional assessment. Each loan just under $50,000. She knew the threshold, the agent agreed. Stayed below advanced underwriting requirements at every institution, made minimal payments, just enough to avoid triggering default alerts. Outside, agents loaded Caroline's Range Rover onto a flatbed truck. The $68,000 vehicle gleamed under the autumn sun, soon to be seized like everything else, the jewelry found in her bedroom safe, the investment accounts traced back to fraudulent funds. Every asset connected to criminal proceeds, Martha observed. She built her entire life on stolen identities. An agent approached with a tablet. Deputy Director, we've found messages to a cousin about moving funds offshore. Attempted deletion, but recoverable. Martha nodded. Add obstruction to the charges. The doorbell rang at my Alexandria apartment. I checked the peephole to see my parents standing in the hallway, faces drawn with distress. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Richard stepped forward first, his face flushed. They arrested your sister. They say she used our names too. Elaine clutched his arm, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Please, Anna. They're saying terrible things. Fraud. Identity theft. They took her away in handcuffs. I stood in the doorframe, neither inviting them in nor stepping back. I can't. And it wasn't a mistake. Richard's expression hardened. What do you mean you can't? After all we've done for you? You do this to your own sister? To your family? The words hung in the air between us, the familiar weight of obligation and guilt. I felt nothing. She did this to us. I just did my job. I closed the door, the soft click of the latch more final than any slam could be. 6 weeks later, I sat in a federal courtroom, 3 rows behind the prosecution table. The U.S. attorney stood before the jury, her voice clear and confident as she presented the government's case. The defendant, Caroline Reynolds, has been indicted on 15 counts of federal bank fraud, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft. Caroline sat at the defense table in a navy pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, missing the usual glossy shine I remembered from family gatherings. Without her designer clothes and makeup, she looked smaller somehow, diminished. The judge, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair, addressed the court. The court denied bail due to evidence of attempted obstruction of justice. The defendant attempted to delete financial records and contacted relatives about moving funds offshore after becoming aware of the investigation. I watched as Caroline's shoulders tensed. My sister hadn't looked at me once since the trial began. The prosecutor approached an evidence cart. The government would like to present Exhibit 14, an audio recording made by the defendant's sister, Anna Reynolds, during a family dinner on July 12th. A technician prepared the audio equipment. The courtroom fell silent as Caroline's voice filled the space, clear and mocking. I used your credit to get a $90,000 personal loan. You should thank me, I'm building your credit history. I remembered the moment with perfect clarity. The wine glasses on the table. The heavy silverware. The weight of my phone recording every word. Caroline had been so confident, so secure in her belief that Anna would never fight back. The prosecutor continued methodically through the evidence, the forged signatures on loan documents, the bank records showing transfers to Caroline's accounts, the seized assets purchased with stolen funds. The jury listened with increasing discomfort as the full picture of betrayal emerged. For hours. That's all it took for the jury to return. The courtroom filled again for the verdict. On all 15 counts, we find the defendant guilty. Caroline's face crumpled for the first time, reality crashing through her carefully constructed facade. At the sentencing hearing 2 weeks later, the prosecutor stood before the judge. Your Honor, the government requests the court consider several aggravating factors. The defendant exploited family trust, engaged in deliberate concealment of her actions, and has shown zero remorse throughout these proceedings. The judge reviewed the sentencing memorandum, then looked directly at Caroline. The court sentences you to 9 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will pay full restitution of $410,000 to the victims. Furthermore, you are banned from employment in any financial institution for a period of 10 years following release. The gavel fell, the sound echoing through the courtroom. I watched as federal marshals approached to take Caroline away. My sister finally looked at me, eyes wide with disbelief, as if still expecting me to intervene, to save her. The sister she had. Underestimated for 32 years. As the marshals led Caroline out, I remained seated, my expression unchanged. The power Caroline once wielded through charisma and arrogance dissolved in the face of federal law, systematic, impersonal, and final. Not revenge, I thought. Justice. I sit at my desk in the OCC, processing the same compliance forms I've handled for years. But the world around me has shifted. 2 months after Caroline's sentencing, my safe little government job has taken on new meaning. My office phone rings. It's my mother. Anna, we need your help with those credit bureau forms. Elaine's voice wavered between contrition and embarrassment. Your father tried, but... I'll stop by tonight, I say, my voice neutral. Have the account numbers ready. Later, at their Arlington home, I spread the fraud alert forms across their dining table. The same table where, on that Friday night, Caroline had proudly confessed to stealing my identity. The same polished cherry wood where she'd raised her wine glass in a mock toast to her cleverness. I worked methodically, explaining each section with detached professionalism. The trade lines will be removed in 45 to 60 days, I tell them, pointing to the relevant paragraph. The credit bureaus have confirmed. My mother nodded, stealing glances at me when she thought I wasn't looking. My father stared at his hands. The emotional damage will linger in this house like a permanent stain, but the financial damage, all $410,000 of it, is now contained. My phone buzzed. A text from Martha Green. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. The following morning, I knocked on the deputy director's door precisely at 9. Martha gestured to the chair across from her desk. Reynolds. Her usual greeting, clipped and direct. She slid a folder toward me. Inside was an official letter with the OCC seal. Your handling of the Reynolds case was textbook. Ethical. Methodical. She tapped the letter. Which is why you've been selected to lead our new National Anti-Fraud Task Force. I scanned the document, absorbing the implications. Lead Investigator. National scope. Interagency coordination. The Quiet One processing forms was now the running point on financial identity theft across the country. Effective immediately, Martha said, the closest thing to a smile I'd ever seen from her. I nodded. Once. Thank you, ma'am. A week later, I received an envelope from my parents' attorney. Inside were signature pages for their revised trust and estate plan. Caroline had been removed as executor and beneficiary. A no-contest clause had been added. I signed where indicated and mailed the documents back without comment. That evening, I stopped by their house to drop off some tax paperwork they'd requested. As I walked to my car, my father followed me down the driveway. The porch light caught the new lines on his face. The slump in his shoulders. Anna. He stood beside my old Subaru, keys jangling nervously in his hand. I waited. Silent. We. His voice caught. He cleared his throat and tried again, unable to meet my eyes. We thought quiet meant weak. Turns out it meant disciplined. I studied him for a moment. 32 years I'd waited for this validation, for them to see me clearly. Now that it's arrived, I find it means nothing. I don't reply. I don't need to. I slip into my car and start the engine. The Subaru. 10 years old. Paid off. Reliable. It purrs to life. I merge into the evening traffic, flowing through the quiet streets of Alexandria. The streetlights catch my reflection in the rearview mirror. I am content to remain invisible, just another commuter heading home from a safe government job. Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't revenge. It's doing your job flawlessly. And sometimes the greatest freedom comes not from being seen, but from no longer needing to be.